My name is Lakeisha Ortiz, and that Christmas I was 38 years old. On Christmas morning, my niece opened the door and asked, "How many presents did you bring?" I said, 22. She didn't look happy. "That's 5 less than last year," she said. Then, in the same flat little voice children use when they're repeating something they don't really understand, she added, "Mom said if you bring too little, I shouldn't let you in." And then the door started to close, slowly, deliberately. I didn't stop it. I stood there in the snow with 22 wrapped gifts balanced in my arms, my breath lifting in white clouds, my boots grinding softly against the ice on my sister's porch. It was one of those cruelly beautiful Christmas mornings people put on greeting cards. Frost on the railing, pine garland on the banister, warm yellow light spilling through the windows. Somewhere inside, music was playing, something cheerful, something about joy. Emma was 9, dressed in a shiny green elf costume with curled shoes and a red hat drooping over one eyebrow. She had a phone in her mittened hand. I noticed that immediately. Her eyes dropped to the screen, then back to me with eerie precision, as if she had been handed a script and warned not to improvise. "Mom said you were supposed to bring 27 gifts," she repeated. "You only brought 22. That's 5 less than last year." I blinked once. Before I could answer, she added, "Mom also said if you bring too little, don't let you in." Then the door kept closing. Not slammed, not violently. That would have been easier to excuse later. No, my sister chose something colder than anger. Something neat. Something she could later dress up as a misunderstanding. I didn't knock. I didn't call her name. I didn't beg to be let in. I carefully lowered the gift bags onto the welcome mat, straightened one tilted box, and stepped back into the snow. Then I pulled out my phone. No tears, no trembling, just that strange, hard calm that comes when you have been humiliated one too many times and your body no longer wastes energy, pretending to be surprised. I opened my banking app, found the scheduled transfer, and stared at the number one last time. $14,000. Emma's private school tuition, due that week, paid by me. I pressed cancel. The screen refreshed, transfer on hold. "Merry Christmas," I whispered, though the wind was the only thing that heard me. I walked back to my car alone. By the time I got inside, the cold had soaked through my coat and settled deep in my bones. I wrapped both hands around the steering wheel and stared through the windshield as snow skittered across the glass in nervous little spirals. From inside the house, I could still hear music. Laughter, too. The kind that tells you life resumed without you the second the door shut. At 9:43, my phone lit up. "Sister, how could you ruin Christmas?" She's crying. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. "Me? Ruin Christmas? You said if I brought too little, I shouldn't come in. I brought respect. You shut the door." I hit send, and for the first time in years, I realized I hadn't ruined anything. I had just left before they could ruin me again. The drive home was silent. No radio, no calls, just the sound of tires slicing through slush and one sentence circling through my mind like a curse. Mom said if you bring too little, don't let her in. Not Aunt Lakeisha forgot something. Not we misunderstood. Not I'm sorry. No, it was planned, discussed, passed down to a childlike dialogue in a Christmas pageant. By the time I reached my apartment, the hurt had turned into something heavier than sadness. Recognition, because this was never about 5 missing presents. It was about the first boundary I had ever dared to set. No one in my family knew how close I was to falling apart. To them, I was the dependable one, the stable one, the aunt with a good salary, a neat condo, a credit score worth using, and a conscience soft enough to manipulate year-round. I was the woman with a steady paycheck and an even steadier guilt complex, and over time, they had learned how to mine both. But 3 weeks before Christmas, HR had called me into a meeting. The company was restructuring. My department was being absorbed. There were phrases like transition opportunity and possible relocation and temporary uncertainty, which all meant the same thing in corporate language. Start preparing to lose everything. I was still employed, technically, still showing up, still filing reports, still pretending my hands didn't sweat every time my boss emailed me. But I could feel the floor weakening beneath me. One bad week, one missed deadline, one error in the wrong file, and I would be gone. And with the job would go my insurance, my condo, and the fragile little life I had stretched so carefully around other people's needs. I told no one, Not my mother, not my sister, nobody. Because I already knew what would happen if they sensed weakness. My value would drop. And in my family, value was the closest thing to love. A week before Christmas, my mother had called in that soft voice she only used when she wanted something disguised as affection. Sweetheart, you know they won't say it, but they really do want to see you, especially Emma. She's been talking about your gifts all month. I stood in my kitchen staring at an overdue mortgage notice tucked under a fruit bowl and said, I can't do much this year. You don't have to do much, she replied too quickly, which was how I knew it was a lie. Just come. Without you, there's no Christmas spirit in that house. You know that. I should have said no. I should have let silence answer for me. But some foolish, starving part of me still wanted to believe I mattered for more than what I provided. That maybe, just maybe, this year the invitation meant me. Last Christmas should have cured me of that fantasy. I brought 30 gifts that year. 30. I spent my December bonus and part of January's rent tracking down every single thing Emma had mentioned wanting. The deluxe art set, the glitter sneakers, the pink Switch with the exact game she had circled in a catalog. I wrapped each one myself, tied satin ribbons around the boxes, even tucked handwritten notes beneath the bows. I remember sitting on my apartment floor until nearly midnight, surrounded by tape and paper and ribbon curls, feeling exhausted but hopeful. Like maybe generosity could still buy closeness, if not love. Then Christmas morning came. Emma tore into one of the biggest boxes under the tree, gasped, and squealed, Daddy got it for me. I froze. Her father, my sister's deadbeat ex, hadn't sent a card in years, didn't call on birthdays, didn't show up when she was sick. But suddenly, in that room, he got to play Santa. And my sister didn't correct her. She smiled and said, See? He's trying harder now. Maybe he's finally growing up. I sat there with cocoa warming my hands, the receipt still folded in my coat pocket, and watched something I bought become part of somebody else's redemption arc. No one corrected the story. No one looked at me. No one thanked me. That was the moment I should have understood the family rule. Truth was optional, but image was sacred. In March, my sister called crying. The tuition deadline is this week. Emma loves that school. Please, Lakeisha, just this once. You're the only one I can ask. I paid it. $14,000 disappeared with one transfer and one sharp knot in my stomach. In June, it was Muffin, Emma's Yorkie, torn ligament, emergency surgery. My sister cried so hard I had to hold the phone away from my ear. You know how attached she is. If something happens to that dog, Emma will be devastated. You don't want that on your conscience, do you? So I paid $2,600 to keep a tiny, trembling dog from becoming another emotional weapon. In September, it was just a short-term cash flow issue. $2,000, she said, only until the new job kicks in. I wired that too. By October, my savings were gone, my credit card was maxed out, I was juggling payment plans and pretending not to notice the second warning from the bank sitting unopened on my counter. And all the while, my sister's Instagram gleamed like a lie under perfect lighting. Photos from Emma's private school orientation with captions about sacrifice and hustle. Photos of Muffin in a tiny pink cast with hashtags about being worth every penny. A selfie in front of the Christmas tree I paid for, smiling like she had built that life by herself. And my favorite, posted just 2 weeks before Christmas. Some people rely on others. I hustle. I stared at that caption for a full minute in my dark apartment, then laughed out loud. Not because it was funny, but because sometimes humiliation becomes so repetitive it starts sounding absurd. That was why I almost didn't go this year. I had one foot out, one boundary half built. Then my mother stepped in with her holy little speech about family and children and how Christmas wasn't the time to make things difficult. So I went. With 22 gifts instead of 27. And somehow that made me unworthy of crossing the threshold. 3 days passed after Christmas. No apology, no thank you, no video of Emma opening the gifts I left on the mat. Nothing. The silence felt organized. On the fourth morning, there was an envelope outside my apartment door. No return address, just my name in block letters. I opened it at the kitchen table with my coat still on, assuming it was junk or a delayed holiday card from someone still committed to fake warmth. Inside was one sheet of paper, one sentence. She's telling people you're unstable and dangerous, that Emma shouldn't be around you. I read it once, then again. Then a third time, slower, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something less vicious. But they didn't. I sat there staring at the page, my pulse pounding behind my eyes. Unstable, dangerous. After everything I had paid, everything I had carried, everything I had swallowed, so they could keep performing their polished little survival story, I finally drew one line. And now they needed a reason to erase me cleanly. So they made me the villain. My hands went very still, because heartbreak was one thing, a smear campaign was another. And my sister had forgotten something important about me. I was not clueless, I was not weak, and I was not the kind of woman who missed patterns for long. I worked in compliance. I investigated fraud for a living. So I set the letter down, opened my laptop, and started digging. I started with the same place I always started when something felt off, my own records. Clean, organized, predictable. That's what I needed, something that made sense. I logged into my credit account, fingers steady, breathing even. At first, everything looked normal. Balance high, yes. Stressful, yes, but expected. Then I saw it. A loan. $9,800. Private education lender. My name, my address, my identity. My chest tightened, but I didn't panic. Not yet. I clicked into the details. The phone number listed was mine. Almost. 1 digit off. Just enough to redirect verification. Application date. 2 weeks after I wired Emma's tuition. My mind didn't jump. It aligned. Quietly, precisely. I kept digging. Another account surfaced. $3,500. Veterinary credit line. Same pattern. Slight variations. Same structure. Same intent. My information, twisted just enough to slip past automated checks. I leaned back slowly, eyes scanning the screen, pulse now steady in a different way. Cold, focused, controlled. Because now I remembered. My sister asking for my ID. Just for the school records, she said. They need to confirm the payment source. I had sent it. Clean scan, no redactions, no hesitation. Because that's what I always did. I helped. I trusted. I paid. 4 loans over $17,000, all tied to moments she called me crying. Tuition, surgery, emergencies, all mirrored, all duplicated, except this time the money didn't come from my bank account. It came from my name. I didn't cry. I didn't call her. I didn't respond to the next message that came through 10 minutes later. Emma's still upset. Can you at least call her? The same script, the same guilt, the same expectation that I would fold, apologize, return to my assigned role. I set my phone face down. Then I made one call. Hey, I said when she picked up, I need you to look at something. She didn't ask questions. She never did. That's why I trusted her. Former colleague, Financial Fraud Bureau. The kind of woman who didn't get distracted by emotion when there were facts to verify. I sent everything. Screenshots, dates, documents. Within an hour, she called me back. Her tone was different this time. Sharper. Lakeisha, this is clean, too clean. This isn't sloppy fraud. This is intentional, patterned. She's masking it under education and medical categories to avoid triggering alerts. I closed my eyes, not in disbelief, in confirmation. What happens now? I asked. We open it, she said. Officially. Within 48 hours, everything started moving. Accounts flagged, loans frozen, verification requests sent. Then the school emailed. Emma's tuition account was under review. Pending confirmation of funding sources. I read the message twice, not because I didn't understand it, but because I knew exactly what it meant. 2 days later, my phone rang. Her name lit up the screen. I let it ring. Then again. On the 4th call, she left a voicemail. Her voice cracked, rushed, unfamiliar. Lakeisha, what did you do? The school called me. They're saying there's an issue with the payment. Emma could lose her spot. You can't do this to her. She's a child. I didn't call back. I didn't correct her. Because this wasn't about a child. This was about a system she built, piece by piece, using me as the foundation. And now that foundation was gone. A week later, it escalated. Her accounts were under audit. The vet clinic flagged the previous payments. The lender sent formal notices. Everything she had layered so carefully began to peel back under scrutiny. And me, I stayed silent. Not hiding, not avoiding, just no longer participating. Then came the family group chat. It started with confusion, then accusations, then the usual rotation of denial and blame. My phone lit up over and over again, messages stacking faster than I could read them. What's going on? Why is Emma's school calling? Lakeisha, did you report something? I watched it all without responding. because this was the part where I usually stepped in, smoothed things over, took responsibility for things I didn't do just to restore peace. Not this time. Then Uncle Mike typed one sentence. Did you take loans out in her name? Everything stopped. No typing bubbles, no reactions, just silence. I stared at the screen, waiting. Seconds stretched, then minutes, and in that quiet, something shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough. Because for the first time, the question wasn't about me fixing something. It was about her answering for it. I finally typed. I didn't ruin anything. I stopped paying for something I didn't agree to. That was it. No explanation, no defense, just truth, placed calmly in the center of the chaos. The chat fractured after that. Some people left. Some tried to redirect. Some called me privately, voices suddenly softer, careful, like they were recalibrating how they spoke to me, now that the story didn't fit anymore. By that evening, her Instagram was gone. Every post, every caption, every carefully filtered version of her life, erased. That night, she sent me a voice message, 48 seconds. I listened to it once, then again. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she said, voice shaking. I was just trying to keep things together. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. I was going to fix it. I just needed time. Please, don't tell anyone else. I needed you to hear this first. Just you. Just me. Always just me. The one who absorbs it, fixes it, carries it quietly. I stared at my phone for a long time. Then I forwarded the message to my lawyer. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about protection. From manipulation. From obligation dressed up as love. From being the invisible safety net everyone assumed would always be there. She didn't want forgiveness. She wanted another extension. And for the first time in my life, I didn't give her one. 2 weeks later, everything settled into a kind of quiet that felt unfamiliar. Not peaceful at first, just still. The investigation moved forward without me needing to push it. Documents, timelines, confirmations, facts replacing feelings. My sister stopped calling. The family group chat went silent except for occasional awkward check-ins that never quite landed. It was like everyone was waiting for me to step back in and fix the tension. I didn't. My mother called one evening, her voice softer than I had ever heard it. I didn't know everything, she said. I'm sorry. I stood by my window, watching the last of the snow melt into gray slush along the street. I believe you, I replied. And I did. But belief didn't erase damage. Do you want to come over? I made coffee. There was a pause, the kind that used to scare me, the kind that used to make me rush to fill it. This time, I let it breathe. I'll think about it, I said. Not yes, not no, just choice. I sold my apartment. Not for as much as I hoped, but enough. Enough to clear debts that were never supposed to be mine. Enough to walk away without dragging their weight into whatever came next. I packed quietly. No announcement, no dramatic goodbye. Just boxes, paperwork, and a decision that didn't need approval. The new city wasn't impressive. No skyline, no noise, just smaller streets, slower mornings, and a job where no one looked at me like a resource to be used. On my first day, my manager said, "Here, we carry things evenly." I nodded, but it took me a second to understand what that meant. Then I did, and something inside me finally unclenched. December came again. No wish lists, no pressure, no last-minute transfers. Just a reservation for one. A small table, roast chicken, sweet potatoes, pie. Outside, snow fell quietly, like it always had. But this time, I wasn't standing on anyone's porch waiting to be let in. At 8:17 p.m., my phone buzzed. A message from my mother. Emma made you something. She wants to talk. Just talk. A photo followed. Crayon lines, uneven shapes. 2 figures in the snow building a fort. One tall, one small. Above us, a crooked flag with 2 words written in careful, childish letters. Us. I stared at it longer than I expected. Not because I didn't understand what it meant, but because I finally did. Love can be real, even when the people around it are not. I didn't reply. Not out of anger, not out of punishment, but because for the first time I understood something I had spent years avoiding. You can love someone and still walk away. That night, I paid my bill, stepped out into the cold, and let the quiet settle around me. No expectations, no roles, no invisible contracts. Just me. And for once, that was enough.